Hello, Gail. Thank you very much for joining today. And I'm going just to introduce you. Gail Parker is a senior lecturer from the University of Wales, Trinity St. David. And she's been working in the Erasmus Plus project, Think Global, with this partnership of institutions that one of the things that we've been working on is the concept of global competence and how this can be deployed into school systems. So I'm going to ask very short questions to Gail Parker, and she's going to share her insights and knowledge about this. Okay, so thank you very much, Gail. The first question is, what is global competence, and why it is important that teenagers are globally competent nowadays?
Okay, well, Bore da from Wales. I'll try and answer as best I can. First of all, global competence is a multifaceted issue, and it includes lots of development, social, emotional skills, and civic learning. There are four important overlapping dimensions that students need to develop here to interact successfully with people face to face as well as virtually, as we're doing now, in their communities and in other regions and nations. The first dimension is the capacity to critically examine issues and for them to investigate the world around them, such as looking at poverty, trade, migration, looking at inequality, environmental justice, conflict, which is at the forefront at the moment, cultural differences and stereotypes. The second then is that capacity to understand and appreciate different perspectives and worldviews as they go through their education. And the third dimension then is that ability to interact positively with people of difference and to respect different opinions, looking at national, social, ethnic and religious backgrounds, as well as those differences in genders. And lastly, then, the fourth dimension builds on those other three, and it stresses about being willing to act constructively to address the issues of sustainability and well-being so that they can take action. You asked me, Jodie, specifically to talk about teenagers, but I think younger children are becoming more and more aware of global issues. So they need to develop these skills quite early on in order to develop their competence of global issues. For example, we heard this week of a tragic shooting in America. It can't be hidden from younger children. And also there's the war in Ukraine and issues relating to climate. We all know that children who are engaged in international issues at a very young age are more likely to be active citizens then who want to make a positive contribution to the world. And there's also then research that suggests that getting involved in action towards a better world has a positive impact on people's mental health. So that's an important aspect here. So, children will gain a better understanding of the differences between people, which will then embrace them rather than create fear within them. There was some research in 2019 that identified the worries that younger children have. For example, in 2019, their biggest worry that children expressed was climate change and sustainability, with 48% of children identifying that. And that's quite frightening when you think that positive popularity in school was only 20%, and family, friends and relationships only accounted for 3%. So children are more aware than ever about the devastating impact on the world of things that are coming into their news and coming into their bedrooms and into their lives through their possible phones and devices. So it's a fact that we need to come up with a way to facilitate children's concerns here. And in my experience, we can often forget how much exposure these young children have to the news. And while it's good to see them engaging with key issues of current events, it's sad to hear that they worry about it. So it's really an important aspect of sustainability that we kind of get these issues out there so that they can tackle the world and that they can deal with these issues and make informed decisions then as they become adults.
Okay, thank you very much. Your answer leads me to a second question I would like to answer, to ask you, sorry, which is the relationship between global competence and UNESCO's Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay, there's it's a big mouthful, isn't it? All these quotes, but yeah, global competence, is considered necessary for achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Those 17 overarching aims that are essential then in achieving global sustainability for all. For example, gender equality, an end to poverty, climate action, peace and justice. Sustainable development is the process then of improving economic, social, environmental and cultural well-being by taking action. And that's really what we're looking at here, in accordance to those sustainability principles. I'm talking about Wales. I'm very much in dull, wet Wales over here, but in Wales we're doing this by taking action with those sustainable development principles. We've got a brand new curriculum here, which is taking a transformational approach that embeds these principles through the curriculum, through an international dimension, and aiming to develop pupils to be ethical, informed citizens. We've got 4 purposes. That our new curriculum underpins we've got 4 purposes that underpin our new curriculum, which embraces learning for children from the age of 3 right up to young adults. So these 4 principles are really important at the moment, and they link quite closely to the goals. So, for example, we seek that our learners develop into ambitious, capable learners who are ready to learn throughout their lives. They don't want to stop their education, stop learning once they hit a certain age. We want them to be enterprising, creative contributors that are ready to play a full part in life and work. And we are teaching them to be healthy, confident individuals who are ready to lead fulfilling lives as valued members of society. And lastly, our 4th principle, we want to equip them to become ethical, informed citizens, ready to be citizens of Wales and of the world as a whole. So global competence then has got many dimensions that emphasize how students can respond and act on the knowledge and the skills that they develop. So the reasons given for teaching global competence centre then on the need to ensure children and young people are prepared, and that's where the links come between those UNESCO aims and the goals. So there's, just to finish off that question, there's a lovely story about a piece of research in Berlin that I read recently, where 5 children aged 10 to 11 went to various fashion outlets asking for a job. And they said, oh, we're really willing to work. We'll work long hours and we'll work for really low pay. And again, not surprisingly, they were rejected and told to go away because they were far too young to be employed. And it would be classed as child labour. And young children understand what's happening here. So we need to give them the tools to deal with these issues when they hear about child labour in other countries who are working in cotton fields. So children are making connections to what's right and wrong, and those UNESCO goals link in really closely then with the sustainability goals.
Okay, thank you very much. And my final question is this: as our audience are school leaders and school heads, so how can schools foster global competence in students?
Okay, there's a lot of research out there that demonstrates how classroom activities can really support students to develop these skills and dispositions that come under that umbrella of the term global competence. Increased, globalization requires a new style of learning and skills. We can't just sit on our laurels and let it happen what's happened before. We've got to keep moving here. And we need to ensure then that children are ready to tackle the challenges that they're faced with, so that they can enjoy the benefits of becoming global citizens. They need that ability to become an active participant. So not just sitting back and watching, they need to have that active participation role. It would be good if there was multilingualism happening within our schools and societies. They need an intercultural sophistication so that they know what's understood in other countries and what's happening in other cultures. They need those critical inquiry skills, and they need creative and innovative approaches. So to expand on these, learners need to develop that capacity to evaluate information and formulate arguments. They need to look at complex situations and problems so that they can make connections and use evidence then to identify perhaps biases or gaps in information and managing conflicting arguments. And we do that quite a lot to start with, looking at asking children whether it's fake news or not. If you ask young children or teenagers, not so much young children, but if you ask teenagers, what have you read on your phone, they'll tell you things, and you challenge them. Is that right? Where have you read that? Who said that? What's it informed by? So it starts off in the home, but again, education supports this. They also need that to develop the capacity to identify and analyze multiple perspectives and worldviews, looking at positioning and connecting then their own views and their own perspectives with other perspectives around the world. They need to understand differences in communication and recognise the importance of socially appropriate communication conventions, and adapt their communication to the demands of a diverse cultural context. And finally, they need to evaluate actions and consequences by identifying and comparing different courses of action and weighing these up against one another to kind of see what works best in the short and the long term. So also then some pedagogies must be mentioned here. Technology is a key feature in many of the examples of classroom-based work around the world, and aims to enhance students' global competence, particularly through project work. We use a lot of PBL, or project-based learning, and this is considered a really, really important tool in developing global competence, which is often facilitated through digital and online technologies to enhance then and reach the international elements of learning. It's generally carried out in groups. The students have to work on an authentic real-life project, with the aim then of improving their reasoning and collaborative skills, as well as maintaining their interest through authentic learning. I train teachers here, student teachers, and we regularly use this to enable them to develop their skills of learning themselves, but also to encourage them to use these skills within the classroom and to promote this within their teaching. But some educational systems, global competence is already kind of incorporated quite closely into the culture of the school. For example, there's a school in Wales quite close to me. They've undertaken projects looking at child labour, which I spoke of earlier, and they as a school have decided that all their uniform that they wear to school and is promoted needs to be fair trade cotton. And they base that on the fact that 13% of the world's cotton is produced sustainably. So, they base that on that small percentage, so that they want their school to kind of make a difference. So they're already acting as those ethical, informed citizens. So, it's really important that teachers then need to create that safe classroom culture where students can express themselves, speculate and question and debate respectively. So teachers may need some help here. They may need some professional learning opportunities to develop their skills, to enable them to shift from instructional didactic approach to a more open student-centred classroom model. And again, there are implications for school leadership then in ensuring that culture of support enhances those opportunities then for global competence education. And hopefully we are moving in the right direction.
Okay, thank you very much. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing this time with us. And I hope to meet you again face to face in the future in Barcelona for the final meeting of our project. Thank you very much, Gail. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.